Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Uh, the monsoon session of Parliament commenced today with face-off between the centre and the opposition on Operation Sindoor. Before the session began, Prime Minister Modi said, and in a long speech, which again was a departure because normally when you see when the session begins, the Prime Minister comes in, makes a short speech, and then he goes inside Parliament. But today it was a sort of a departure, as I said, because it was a long speech. He was trying to give a clarification, he was trying to emphasize a number of points, and what he said was very, very significant. Now, what he said, even before the discussion on Operation Sindoor has begun, outside Parliament, he stood there for close to about 14 or 15 minutes or a little more than that. And he said that Operation Sindoor had achieved 100% success, called it a vijay utsav or a festival of celebration. And the nation, and he also said the nation had witnessed the power of unity, because this was in reference to all the multi-party delegation going to various countries and then coming back. So it was in this reference that he said that it also witnessed the power of unity. He even said that India succeeded in running a campaign to expose Pakistan. Now, opposition wanted a discussion under Rule 267, but the government wants a discussion under Rule 167. Now, the first day, of course, was marked by repeated adjournments of both houses. But the big question is that will there be an honest discussion on Operation Sindoor? Will the accountability be fixed, or it will be like a usual bluster? But the very fact that Prime Minister Modi made a long speech, he has already said what he wanted on Operation Sindoor. He's spoken on opposition unity. He's said that it was a 100% success of the army. It was a power of unity. Now this is a Vijay Utsav of sorts. So does that truncate the scope of the opposition now, when at all, whenever the discussion is held? So joining me this evening are Anand Sahai, senior journalist and political commentator. Thank you so much, Anand, for joining. We have Mr. PDT Achari, who's the former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha. Mr. Achari, thank you so much for joining. And I'll begin with Anand Sahai, because Prime Minister Modi's speech, normally what happens is that whenever the Parliament begins, Prime Minister Modi comes out and outside the Parliament, he stands there for a brief duration, he makes his point, and then he goes inside. But today he spoke on everything. It seemed that he had certain things in his mind. He spoke about Operation Sindoor, he spoke about investments, he spoke about Make in India, he spoke about how the world is seeing. Do you see this as some kind of a departure, a new kind of a convention, where Prime Minister Modi at the beginning of the monsoon session makes such a long speech?
No, Nilu. In case the session had begun, the convention is that nothing that the government says to be spoken outside the Parliament House chambers. You can't be a government minister, and the Prime Minister is certainly the first among the ministers, has no business speaking outside Parliament. Now, I'm not sure whether he said what he had to say outside the House before 11 o'clock or after. If it was after, then in my understanding of things, this is a contempt of convention. This is a contempt of Mr. Acharya will be better able to better tell us whether rules exist or not about government should be heard only in the House before it is heard anywhere else when the session is on. But it is certainly a convention in the Westminster system of democracy. If you do not adhere to the convention, well, why have you called a parliament session? When you won't be in the House, when you lately I've seen a tendency on part of this Prime Minister to miss parliament sessions because he's traveling. And I believe he's going to be traveling again in a couple of days to the Maldives, to the UK, something like that. That is complete. That is compounding.
sorry to interrupt you, because you said that this is a contempt of Parliament in a way if he speaks outside the House. But he already set the agenda for Operation Sindoor, and the face-off also today was Operation Sindoor. We'll come to that later.
I'm coming to
Still,
that.
at the beginning of the
I'm coming,
session, speaking.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm coming to that. I'm saying A, by speaking outside the House, if the House was in session. If the House session had not begun, supposing you spoke at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning, then in spirit it is a contempt. When you know that 2 hours or 1 hour later the House session will commence. That's one aspect. And so this is like a continuation of his monkey bath when Parliament is on. You can't do that. This is against all canons of parliamentary conduct and at the highest level of prime minister. So this is for the goon squad now to take over. You know what he has said about celebration of vijay utsav, like a victory day we'll celebrate. This is absurd. Was there a war? Did you fight a full-fledged war? Your pilots, your military is complaining that when they took off to aim nine sites, terrorist sites, they didn't have carte blanche to attack Pakistan. In fact, our external affairs minister, he alerted the Pakistanis that we wish to do only this. There was no war, so what is the victory about? Is it victory over terrorism? Your Kashmir Lieutenant Governor has said it was a total security failure and failure on his part that this should have happened. So where is the victory? About what? Any leader of a nation in
Was Prime Minister Modi trying to?
1 minute.
Yes.
I said, well, please don't cut when I'm in the middle of a sentence. You ask a separate question if you wish to.
Yeah.
I'm saying any leader of a government which tries to deflect all valid criticism that has been made over a period of time, then he resorts to these techniques. And that is what the present leader is trying to do, I think. Go ahead. What's your question?
No, my point was Prime Minister Modi, did he intentionally make such a long speech outside the parliament just before the commencement of the session, only to put pressure on the opposition so that they do not have much of scope to speak on Operation Sindoor and ask them those questions which are sticky?
No, I don't agree with you. What is there to put pressure on the opposition? Opposition, whatever opportunity it gets, while writing a newspaper column outside, speaking on a mic and a stage from outside or in parliament, they will say what they have to say. They will raise those questions, and that voice will be carried outside. The pressure, I mean, it is the PM who appears to be utterly unmindful of the dignity of the House, the dignity of the position of Prime Minister. And this betrays extreme nervousness. He's hoping against hope that his message will carry weight among the people. As it happens, I do not think people, in a formal way, the goon squads run by certain elements which, owe their existence to the regime. They will, try to amplify the message given by their leader. But I do not think that there is a single Indian today who buys the government's narrative on notebandi, on GST, on the Chinese invasion, each one of these things that the government is trying to dodge. These are live bullets that are coming for the government. And what it does, Manipur, same category. Manipur, they were obliged to have a discussion. In a 2 hour long speech, the Prime Minister said 2 sentences about Manipur. So that was the situation. So today, he is running away from the House. That is what his action shows to me. I wasn't there. But on the day that the House is starting, it was sacrosanct. I have seen prime ministers, when I used to cover these things, I've seen prime ministers cancel important engagements overseas Those engagements are planned well in advance. But even then, not during the session, not during the session. But this gentleman, when he's in Delhi, he does not attend the session.
Mm.
I've seen Mrs. Indira Gandhi as PM run from her room, from her chambers in the house to the Lok Sabha, literally running, scrambling like a school student because she heard that the leader of the opposition, Indrajit Gupta, was about to start speaking. He was the leader of the opposition. He was a very senior opposition leader who was heard with the highest respect from all sides of the house, even those who did not agree with him. But he made valid points. So I've seen her run to the house to be in time. Nehru never missed any sessions. Narasimha Rao did not miss any sessions. Vajpayee did not miss any sessions. I will not count Charan Singh and Inder Gujral and Deve Gowda because they were there for very limited periods of time. I don't think VP Singh in his 11 months missed any session.
No, but Anand, there's another point, that she's already said that Operation Sindoor was 100% successful operation. It was a great power of unity. We will celebrate it as a vijay utsav. All these points which you have said, does it mean that now we will not have an honest discussion on Operation Sindoor, where obviously opposition is going to demand accountability? They will ask tough questions as to where are the terrorists, why was there an intelligence failure, how many jets were downed after especially what Donald Trump said. So by saying all this, is he now trying to indicate that these questions will not be answered by the government, whatever may come?
I think you're quite right. You have said it exactly the way it ought to be said, that there will not be an honest discussion. In my thinking, even if the PM had not said today what he said outside the house, even then I'd have said, I am not expecting an honest discussion in which true accountability can be established. This man is not Jawaharlal Nehru, who called a special session of the House as the fighting on the border in 62 with China was going on. He was presenting a white paper. He was being pilloried by his own party. He took it on the job. He gave his replies. This man is not Nehru. This man is not Indira. This man is not Narasimha Rao. This man is not Vajpayee. This man lives in a world of propaganda. There is reality, there is illusion. Even his illusion is covered with propaganda. So this is a signal for propaganda making squads that he commands to take charge now. This will be the drum that will be beating in all parts of India. The session of Parliament, vital to our democracy, is incidental to this leader. He wants to give you that a kind of an illusion of democracy, an image of democracy when none exists. The basic sinews and channels of democracy, the various institutions, those have long packed up. What exists today is an apology, a sham.
Right. Okay, I'll come to Mr. PDD Achari that, there is a dilemma in Rajya Sabha over the discussion on Operation Sindoor, and I'll tell you why. Because opposition demanded a discussion under Rule 267, and the Treasury benches, today the BJP MP from West Bengal, he admitted, his notice was admitted, and that was under Rule 167. Now, what is really happening? I mean, why was Rule 167 notice admitted by Jagdeep Dhankar, who's the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, and obviously 267 opposition knows that it would not be admitted, but then also they chose to admit the notice under 267. It wasn't accepted. That's a different story altogether. But I would like you to explain the difference between Rule 167 and 267, because this looks like a dilemma in Rajya Sabha. And also the question that is the opposition misusing Rule 267 in a way?
Well, I will come to Rule 267 and I will explain what actually this rule is meant for. 267. Rule 267, says two things. One is there is a certain business listed in the agenda for the day, and there is a particular motion which is a part of that agenda. And that motion cannot be moved unless a particular rule is suspended. And therefore, another motion comes to suspend the rule. So when that motion is adopted and the rule is suspended, then the motion that is listed in the agenda gets moved. It is actually the purpose of this rule is to suspend a rule to enable the House to take up a discussion or take up a particular business. I will just give you an example. Suppose the House wants to discuss a particular issue of great importance, but then the rule of sub judice comes in. The matter is before the court, yet the House wants to discuss it. Now, there is a rule which says that a matter which is sub judice cannot be discussed in the House. But the House wants to discuss it. It is so important for the House. Then what is the way out? The way out is to take recourse to this rule, suspend that particular rule which does not allow you to discuss this matter because of the rule of sub judice, and then discuss it. So the purpose of this rule, because there is a same rule in the Lok Sabha, same rule, and the wording is almost the same. The purpose is the same. This is to suspend a particular rule to enable the House to discuss a matter which is listed in the House, in the agenda. That is the basic purpose of this rule. In fact, in the Rajya Sabha, there seems to be a lot of confusion about it. I have talked to some of the members in the last session because they told me that no discussion is allowed under 267. So how can you allow a discussion under 267? Once the rule is suspended, for example, this rule, as I told you, it deals with suspension of rule. After suspension of rule, what will you do? There is nothing. So what actually, members of the Rajya Sabha seem to understand, seem to think that this rule is like the adjournment rule in the Lok Sabha. Since Rajya Sabha doesn't have the power to censure the government through an adjournment motion or bring a no confidence motion, it can happen only in the Lok Sabha. They think that this is the equivalent of adjournment motion. Suspend the rule and take up another thing. That is not the intention. That is not the purpose of this rule. First of all, let me clarify that. Okay. Now, you asked me about Rule 167. Now, all discussions take place under 167. That is on a motion. That means on a matter of public importance, discussion can take place on the basis of a motion. And that comes under 167. So if a discussion has been allowed under 167, the chair is perfectly right in applying this rule, because this is the rule under which a discussion takes place in the House. The other one is meant for a different purpose altogether, as I explained. I hope things are clear.
In a way, do you feel that opposition is trying to misuse this Rule 267? Because there's a data which I have it before me, which shows that opposition, it seems, is wrongly using 267, because only 11 discussions under 267 have happened in Rajya Sabha since 1950, and the last one we had under Rule 267 was on demonetization.
No, my opinion is that Rule 267 is not meant for any discussion. This rule is meant to suspend a rule. so that a discussion could be facilitated in the House. A
Okay.
discussion could not otherwise take place because of a particular rule, and that rule has to be suspended first, and then you have a discussion in the House. This rule is meant for that only, because
Okay.
this rule gives power to the House to suspend any rule for a particular purpose.
Hmm.
That's the thing. That is the only purpose of this rule.
No, but do you
In the
think that
Lok
the
Sabha,
opposition is going wrong somewhere by
no, I'm not saying.
the notice?
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. They are all very senior political leaders and very knowledgeable people who have been in the House for a long time. So they must know the rule. But my understanding is this, because in the Lok Sabha, I know the same rule is there. And in the Lok Sabha, we use only for this rule only for this purpose. Only for this purpose, not for any other purpose. But in the Rajya Sabha, I do not know the circumstances under which this came to be used for this purpose.
Right. Okay. So normally you say that whenever the discussions take place, they take place under Rule 167. So so you feel that the government is right when it admits a notice under Rule 167.
See, the point is, under 167, there is a motion. The advantage
Yes.
of having a motion is that a discussion takes place on the basis of a motion, and finally that motion has to be put to the vote of the House. The House will be divided. The opinion of the House will be obtained. That is the thing.
Hmm.
Whereas in 267, there is actually no provision for any particular motion for discussion of a particular issue.
Right.
That is only for suspension of the rule.
Right. No, but Anand, I'll come to you on this rule only. The two comparisons we are making between Rule 167 and 267. Which rule would hold the government really accountable? Maybe in terms of voting, in terms of when the division of votes happens. How? Which rule puts more accountability for the government?
No, as Mr. Acharya tells us, that under 267, you can't have a discussion. That is an enabling thing to enable the suspension of a particular rule
Yeah.
in order to facilitate something. So
Yes.
once you suspend a rule, existing rule, so which one was sought to be suspended, that is not clear.
Right.
And after that is set aside, a rule has been set aside, suspended, then you have to move a motion. And that motion for discussion is under 167 typically. So now the question is, certain motions permit voting, and in some, like, a short duration, calling attention of the House has certain rules about it, in a matter of urgent importance. And short duration discussion. On each one of these, they don't necessarily lead to a division of votes. Now the thing is, politically, does the opposition, or does the government for that matter, desire a division? We don't know that. Because division means it will show you how many people stand on one side for or against the motion.
Yes.
The government will always have a majority, right? In the normal way, if in case whips have been issued, I'm not sure if a discussion of this nature would have brought the whip out. In any case, the kind of atmosphere, the kind of, in a way, the system, political system and consciousness being created under the present leader, they will just go thump desks. They will not hear any speeches, nothing, They will shout and scream at anyone who dissents and who opposes. So the whole thing becomes quite ridiculous. So therefore, my sense is that the opposition parties bring something to the House in the expectation that at least it is having an effect outside the House. They are not trying to get past the government majority because they don't have a majority themselves. Unless they think that there is a possibility of defection on a certain important matter, which means they have done the groundwork for it in advance, right? So that some people in the opposition benches will absent themselves. They will not be there. In case they are there, then they will oppose the government, in which case there is a risk losing their membership and so on. in certain conditions. So this is actually a political matter. So why did your question that you asked earlier, why was 267 contemplated, right? When a discussion can't happen under that rule, that they must have their reasons. I don't think that they are unaware of it. There are big lawyers amongst them. There are very, very parliamentarians amongst them. So there has to be some reason why they did it. And what is that? So that you have to ask them. I can't. It will be presumptuous of me to try to make a guess on that count.
Right. But I'll go back to the earlier point, Anand, which you made, and I'm going to ask Mr. Achari to comment on it, and then I'll come to you for the concluding comments. Mr. Achari, Prime Minister today made a very, very long speech, which was a little unconventional, because normally when the session starts, Prime Minister has been seen making a brief statement, maybe 2-3 minutes, and then he moves away for the House to start. But today he spoke on a number of things. And ranging from Operation Sindoor to many, many other things, and then calling Operation Sindoor vijay utsav, calling it 100% success, and knowing very well that the agenda is there, opposition has already called for a discussion. Do you think that there was a contempt of Parliament today when he made such a long speech, in your view?
So where did he make the speech? In the House or outside the House?
No. Outside the House, before the session was starting. So he chose to speak
No,
for
but
long.
that is something very unprecedented. And because Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. And under the Constitution, Article 75, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the House of the people. So it is actually in the House that the Prime Minister should explain things. That is his constitutional responsibility. And I really wonder, who did he speak to outside the House?
To the
Who
media.
was the audience?
He was addressing the media. He was
Yeah.
addressing the media.
So the point is, when the House was about to meet, the head of the government cannot make a statement outside the House. He has to come within the inside the House, and he must address the House, and that is the normal practice. I do not know why there was a departure in this particular case, and this is very unconventional. This is very unprecedented. It has never happened in the history of Indian Parliament. When the House was about to meet, the Prime Minister makes a very important statement outside the House to the press people. That is just not allowed. That is against all conventions.
No, but if a Prime Minister does that, then what happens to the Prime Minister? Who's going to point out now? Because with the kind of majority we see in the Parliament, is anybody pointing out, like you and Anand have pointed out, that this is a departure from the normal conventions? The Prime Minister is not allowed to do this. But now that he has done it, what can be done about it?
No, actually, that question actually doesn't arise. What can be done to the Prime Minister? Everybody knows what can be done to the Prime Minister. The point is that he makes a statement outside the House when the House was about to meet. That is something which is not allowed, which doesn't happen, and no Prime Minister has ever done it, as Mr. Sahai was pointing out. No Prime Minister has ever done it. I do not know why it was done. Because when the House was going to meet, if the House is not meeting, then it's a different issue. Prime Minister can address the press anytime. There's no problem. But here, when the House was about to meet, and that too, this discussion or this Prime Minister's opinion needs to be expressed only in the House when the House is about to meet. That is the thing. For example, when the budget comes, the Finance Minister is not allowed to discuss this matter outside the House with the press people. When he was just in a few moments, he would be coming inside the House and reading out the budget. And that will be held as a contempt of the House or something. That is the thing. But in this particular case also, it's a very important matter. The Prime Minister is speaking for the first time, perhaps, on this Sindoor issue. And opposition has already expressed their readiness to discuss this matter in the House. And at that time, to speak to the press and give them all the details about that Operation Sindoor outside the House is a very unconventional thing, unprecedented, I must say.
No, but is it a violation of the conventions, a outright violation of conventions, the parliamentary norms? And Prime Minister seems to be changing that, Mr. Achari.
Well, certainly it is against the convention. This is not a convention. That's what I said. It is against the convention.
Right.
No. It was never done in the past. That's
Okay. 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 So you very categorically and clearly stated what it is. So now my last question to you, Mr. Anand, is that now that Parliament, Prime Minister has already spoken on Operation Sindoor. He's called it 100% success. So what does it mean? I mean, is the discussion on Operation Sindoor is again going to be will look like a farce, something farcical, something which apparently will not hold accountability, of course. So what's the meaning of a discussion like that on Operation Sindoor then? And whatever he had to say, he said it today just before the session began.
But at least if the matter is discussed in Parliament by the opposition parties, they will have freedom to express their views, to ask the questions they wish to ask, so that the matter may go before the people of India. To what was said just now, I would only add that besides being unconventional, unprecedented, I took it further and called it, a contempt of Parliament. I'm not speaking in terms of which rule says so. I think a rule was quoted that it is responsible to the House. The government and the PM is responsible to the House. But that apart, the spirit of the whole thing was not just to be unconventional as far as the Parliament is concerned. This is a contempt of the people of India. Who are the MPs? They have been elected directly, some of them who are in the Lok
Correct.
Sabha, and those who are in the Raj Sabha have been sent up from the states
True.
as representing those states, right? It is a council of states. So you're showing your open contempt for the systems which facilitate the functioning of the parliamentary democracy that we have. That is what has been done in a very flagrant way. You know, I think it's always parliamentary democracy has always been placed on test in the last 10, 11 years. What's happening is very clear. Today, it was open contempt, I'll repeat that word again, of the House, of the people of the country. And you spoke about meeting the media. He didn't meet the media. He was saying something aloud, but he was not subjecting himself, to be questioned. He does not like to be questioned by fellow MPs or by media outside the House. He does not like to be questioned because he thinks that by virtue of propaganda, he has acquired an emperor-like halo. If you recall, some time back, a year and a half ago, that famous symbol of Parliament, opening of Parliament, which was brought back from the medieval period, from a period of kingship. So for the inaugural session of the new Parliament, if you remember, this Parliament building, new building, for its inauguration, also all the democratic principles in our constitution have been flouted at that very time. The Sengol was brought. Sengol was the mace of power. Here, the mace of power of the people of India, not some Raja's golden stick. Rajshahi has gone. It is people Shahi, it is Lok Shahi today.
Yes.
That was one. And what happened? The outside Parliament House, all the different religious faiths, their priests and so on, religion was brought into this Parliament setup. We are not a religious democracy. It is very clear. It doesn't matter whether Mr. Gandhi added secular and socialist in the emergency period. But from beginning to end, the Constitution of India is all over about secular. So all those principles have been given the go by. So the question you raised today, was this a violation of it? Of course it was. This does not align with the Constitution of India, with the spirit of the Indian democracy, with the spirit of those discussions which took place in the Constituent Assembly before we were proclaimed a republic. That is what he has done. He
Right.
is trying to hammer home the point that I will do as I please. What can you do? Nothing. I've got all the power. I have vitiated all the channels of articulation of power. I've shut your mouths. What will you do? You can do nothing. That contempt he shows repeatedly over and over again. And that is what needs to be more.
Right. So what I'm told is that apparently there will be a long discussion on Operation Sindoor, but I guess after Prime Minister returns from abroad, that's what, and after the Business Advisory Committee has met, they probably would decide on which day and date this discussion will take place. But of course, it's a contempt of the Parliament, as is being discussed. Prime Minister making such a long speech on important issues for which the opposition was seeking answers, and he already made a statement outside the Parliament just before the session began. Thank you so much. I'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Mr. Achari. Anand, thank you very much for
Thank
joining.
you. Thank you.